Agradeço o convite do ISAGS para promover essa discussão, né? Trazer alguns elementos que considero relevantes para a discussão no âmbito internacional, em específico na Organização Mundial da Saúde, sobre as relações entre saúde pública, inovação.
The relationship between public health, innovation, and property rights. I would like to thank the colleagues in the panel that also brought some motivating elements and that will somehow supplement with cases and more elements to the debate. So I'm going to talk about the public health, and I will do a brief comment about this. My presentation will focus on the Resolution 61.21 issued in 2008 that is called Global Strategy and Action Plan about Public Health and Intellectual Property. In this Within this, we have some elements of innovation and some very important elements. That one was the publication that we'll detail during the presentation, which is the report of CEWG that focuses on different elements, the resolution 61.21 and the number 17. There is a follow-up process of this CEWG report that refers to the preparation and implementation of different demonstrative projects. The debate on public health and relationship with intellectual property, the presentation of Susan Sell made it very easy to understand the global scenario, why WHO and other forums such as regional offices related to WHO are discussing intellectual property within an international health organization. So we have an oversimplification. I'm not even going to refer to that because Susan has already explained this very well. This idea of the international evolution of property, of intellectual property. In short, since the time before Paris Convention to this date, we've had an increasing reduction of political spaces where countries can negotiate the implementation of policies and standards relative to intellectual property. Currently, the Paris Convention is coexisting with the TRIPS agreement and other measures and agreements that include TRIPS plus provisions, especially bilateral agreements, foreign shifting strategies, and different plurilateral agreements such as the one Susan detailed. Another significant element for our debate that has also brought about many opinions is the innovation crisis in pharmaceutical companies. As you all know, there is a big crisis in the production of innovative products of innovation because they are focusing or they are saying that this is derived from the implementation of strict standards that do not foster intellectual property. So this graph derives from a White House report, a report requested by the White House. It is very similar to another very important report that was issued about 6 years ago from the Accountability Office, the U.S. Accountability Office, that also reviewed the production, the pharmaceutical production and innovation. This comes from the U.S. government, so the report that was issued a few years ago is available to the general public. You can download it from the internet, and that report already mentioned the huge decrease of the FDI registry of new molecules and the very slow increase of other entities. They were just using what was already there. So based on new molecules, instead of researching for new molecules, the already existing molecules were somehow reshaped and reused. This is also reflected in patent claim forms. This, of course, reflects on intellectual property rights. The data show that the declining curve is the number of new molecules recorded with the FDA. This is something that has been going on for 30 years. Intellectual property rights are more protected and innovation decreases. This is yet another element that was really crucial for our debate. There's another element, a third element within the context of developing countries. It refers to innovation on forgotten diseases. There's a context in developing countries where non-transmissible diseases coexist with transmissible diseases. They are called forgotten diseases. Two big categories can be mentioned there. The innovation studies neglect these forgotten diseases. There is a study that reviewed the number of drugs marketed between 1975 and 1999. Only 1.1% of these new drugs were focusing on forgotten diseases. Only these 16 new drugs were for forgotten diseases. This study refers and involves people and was conducted by very respectable experts and shows the different numbers of diseases and shows that there is a problem in the model because it does not respond to the needs of southern countries. A more recent study that also involved the opinion of many experts shows a little increase compared to the first study. The second study takes from 2000 to 2011 37 new drugs for forgotten diseases. Marketing incentives seem to be not enough to respond to health problems in developing countries. The main market incentive is the patent protection. This protection, as data shows, is not incentivizing pharmaceutical companies and market actors to produce innovation and respond to the needs of everyone in developing countries. Therefore, there's still a lack of vaccines, of diagnostic tools, and of medicines. We are now going to discuss the new models of R&D that are of interest in developing countries in the southern cone. This comes from the WHO. I'm not going to do a detailed review of all the steps, but this is very well described in the literature. Some members of the panel, like German Velázquez, was part of many steps of the process. And I would also mention Carlos Correa, a crucial personality in the process. I don't want to forget other people. I remember now Professor Guimarães, who worked very much in Brazil. Many people developed initiatives that involved the WHO, the innovation, the research and development on public health committee, also produced different reports, one in 1996 about investing in health research, and the Commission on Macroeconomics on Health in 2001, another report. These reports provided us with the elements, with the context to implement other initiatives to expand discussions. The process that is the focus of this presentation goes or has four important moments in the WHO. The first was the publication of the Intellectual Property Rights, Innovation and Public Health Report. This was issued by a commission that had meetings from 2003 to 2006. There were Latin American countries represented by Carlos Correa. This report included and includes many recommendations, among which we can mention one that derived in the Intergovernmental Working Group, and in the 2006 Assembly, this group recommended different things, and in 2008, this Intergovernmental Working Group suggested a specific work on investing in public research, in public health research, investments on research and innovation. A group of experts coordinated the work and the financing. There was a report issued that same year. It was very criticized. That is something already extensively described in the literature. You can find all the critics on internet. In 2006, there was a resolution to create an expert working group, on research and development. This group worked from 2010 to 2012 and also made a report that is also available online.
Item 7 of Resolution 6121, I was part of the commission, and on behalf of UNASUR, where we had Carlos Correa participating and sharing his knowledge. There were 20 people working together to analyze this subject matter, to promote the funding mechanism that would be sustainable in time. And we drew a report that makes recommendations related to coordination and funding. The main elements I'd like to point out right now are the linkage, the issue of the linkage, the open energy information, access licenses, that is licenses that will improve access to technologies and access to medications, innovative mechanisms for funding, innovating mechanisms for coordination, and also capacity building. The linkage, well, this term has been mentioned quite a bit by the media and among many NGOs and fora, and the linkage suggests that we should separate the costs of R&D from the final cost of the product, final price of the product. This is the basic proposal, so to say. That is, that the price, monopoly achieved prices should not be charged, so that the prices charged by the new drugs should be similar to the ones of the generics. In 2013, while the report had been published in 2012, as said, in 2013, the Assembly of the WHO had to make some decisions that were made based on the recommendations of the report. The main decision was that the countries should promote projects that should lead to develop evidence so as to create an alternative and sustainable model for R&D that should be important for these countries in the Southern Cone. A meeting of experts was held to assess the proposals and the projects. I'm going to skip some slides because I think everything is quite clear on this slide. The experts and the regional offices submitted proposals to the WHO, 22 proposals.
Final de 2012,
there was a meeting held at the end of 2012. 19 experts participated from this. 19 experts for the 6 WHO region. Assessment criteria were developed. The goal of the proposal was analyzed, as well as its scientific and technical merits and the innovative mechanism. And based on all these, 8 projects were shortlisted. These are the 8 projects. You can read more about them on the WHO website. This process moved forward, and the Executive Council of the WHO in January 2014, that is this year, passed a decision or made a decision to promote an analysis of these or assessment of these 8 projects. The former chair of the CEWG was called in. The former chair and the vice chair, as well as observers from the member states. The goal of this assessment was to determine which of the 8 proposals were actually met the principles of the CEWG, and if they were ready enough to move forward with stakeholder meetings so as to receive funding and be implemented. We carried out an assessment in March this year, and this is the result of the assessment with the WHO submitted to the 2014 Assembly. This is one of the tables or charts. I'm not going to read it in detail, but you can download it from the website. So we looked at the linkage for each project. We also analyzed the open knowledge innovation, licenses for access, financing mechanism, connection mechanisms, and capacity building. Because of conflict of interests issue, I didn't analyze the Brazilian project. The color coding is the following one. They were green the more they complied with the CEWG principles. Yellow is sort of intermediate compliance with, and red is when they didn't actually comply with the principles of the CEWG. this analysis, together with the report of WHO, was submitted to the General Assembly, and the countries decided to support the 4 projects that were best rated, and they also decided to concentrate the efforts to find funding for these projects. The decision includes the possibility of setting up a fund using the pool funding approach with voluntary contributions for this goal. And the fund will not be used just for neglected diseases, will be used based on the delinkage process or approach. Well, these are the 4 projects: the NDI, MMV, FDA, and ANDI. These were the best proposals. There was a second stage after the World Assembly of WHO, and the projects that had not been ranked that well the first time were also assessed, and they were projects from 4 countries: Brazil, India, South Africa, and Thailand. So another meeting was held in August 2014, held at the Fiocruz Foundation in Rio de Janeiro. A group of experts was convened to carry out this assessment, and recommendations were issued. The experts submitted to the WHO a set of recommendations related to these 4 projects. In Geneva, in November 2014, that is last month, a second meeting was held to assess. Once again, remember this chart with the yellow, green, and red squares? Well, I participated in that assessment, and the authorities of the CEWG were also involved, as well as representatives for all member states. So this large group of stakeholders analyzed these 4 projects again. We analyzed them. We gave the organizations that had submitted the proposal to introduce improvements, make changes, and finally we submitted all this, the analysis and the project, to WHO. We are now waiting for the WHO report to be published, and that report will be used for the Executive Council to make a final decision. And I'd like to conclude by describing the challenges we have moving forward. So we have the Executive Council meeting in January 2015. After that, the WHO General Assembly in May 2015, where this process will be assessed and where new projects will be included in the list of projects that will be funded as an alternative model. We have the fundamental principles of the CEWG, which change some mainstream visions, which are market-oriented. This is a huge challenge. I mean, the idea of implementing these proposals, as the projects and the implementation of the sample projects will be assessed. This is another challenge. What assessment methodology will be used, what guidelines, what indicators, and what kind of criteria will be used? How is information going to be shared? What results are we expecting from such sample projects, and what do we expect to get out of all of this? And by way of conclusion, well, we still have an element in the report, in the CEWG report, which hasn't been dealt with up to now. But the R&D meeting, which was going to set up a framework for a new funding method and which was going to coordinate the interests of the developing countries, has not been developed yet. So we hope that this discussion will be taken up in the future, in the near future, so that it's possible to go back to this discussion. Thank you very much for your attention.